too, because this is the first board meeting I've chaired for police board, so. All right, are we ready to go? Oh, sure. Okay, well, welcome to the regular meeting of the Nelson Police Board. I'm going to start out by doing the Aboriginal acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge the land on which we gather is the unceded traditional territory of the Ktunaxa, Selk'nams, and the Sinixt peoples, and is home to the Métis and many diverse Aboriginal persons. We honor their connection to the land and rivers and respect the importance of the environment to our strength as a community. So our first order of business is to welcome new Police Board Director, Lindsay McKay.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard. Thank you for being here.
Does she have to be formally sworn in?
Yes. Is that
Front.
Just right there is fine. Camera's there. Yeah, that's fine. And that's the camera.
Okay, if you just want to repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Lindsay McKay,
You solemnly affirm that
do solemnly affirm that
I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
perform my duties
perform my duties
as a member of the Nelson Police Board.
as a member of the Nelson Police Board.
I will not
Will not
accept improper performance of my duties,
accept improper performance of duties,
disclose to any person
disclose to any person
any information obtained
any information obtained
in the course of those duties.
in the course of those duties.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
One more copy sign.
Just one copy.
9-1 and pass it to Charlo, and then is the other one
The other one for
a
me.
souvenir?
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so now we're on to our third item on the agenda, and that is the adoption of the agenda. Yes, okay, as the adoption of the agenda as presented. Yes,
Yeah,
seconded by Devin, okay. Devin. All right, and on to the adoption of the minutes. The recommendation is that the Nelson Police Board adopts the minutes September 7th as presented. Thanks, Devin. Second that, Sue.
Do we have to actually agree? All in favor?
Yes. All in favor, thank you. Okay. So do we have any presentations? No. Okay. So that's presentations from the public who are entitled to up to 5 minutes if they
You're here.
were here.
And would they put in a proposal as to
If it's a presentation, yes, or they could also come and just ask a question or to, you guys would listen, you don't necessarily have to respond.
And very occasionally we get people who will just come and observe.
Trustee Sherry said she opted not.
She came to my first meeting, actually.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this kind of dovetails into the next one, which is the public participation will permit comments from the public on issues the board is presently dealing with. So because no one is here, we'll move on. So business arising from the previous minutes, we have 7A, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee.
Okay,
Updates.
Just before we started, I just wanted to quickly acknowledge the 2 police officers that were killed overnight and responding to the domestic in Innisfil, Ontario. I believe it was the South Simcoe Police Department.
Oh, yeah.
The Equity, Diversion, Inclusion Committee meeting is set for next week, October the 19th. So getting an update today, but we are meeting next week. So
What time?
1 o'clock.
And the main purpose of that meeting is that when you're going to
trying to move forward of filling the permanent
some
seats on the
recruiting? Yeah,
committee.
okay.
The next, it's not on the agenda, but just, I think it's on the agenda. The next, sorry, it's on the agenda. Just came up over the last police board meeting. You were asking about some stats around hate crimes and sexual assaults, if they were increasing, decreasing. So there's a lot of, I guess, complicated factors around what falls into those stats, but generally speaking, sexual assaults reported in 2020 there was 15, and in 2021 there was 14, so it's gone down by 1. And the hate crimes in 2020 there were 7, and in 2021 there were 7 reported. So there's a little bit of subjectiveness with that around suspected and determined to be. So, but that was all the ones that came in as either possible or actual hate crimes.
So, sorry, hate crimes were 7 both years?
Yes.
Okay.
So fortunately, it's unfortunate there's any, but it's fortunate that there hasn't been any real increase or change as some of the trends elsewhere are showing.
And the criteria for determining those is the same, like it was the same over both years?
Yes.
Like you said, some subjectivity, but.
Yeah, there's some that are clearly hate crimes, and then there's other ones that potentially were, but without locating. Like an example would be Jewish cenotaph or something like that. If there was a swastika spray painted on it, that would be clearly a hate crime. But if somebody tagged it or spray painted on it, it's hard to determine whether or not it was directed at it because it was symbolism of the Jewish faith, or if it was just it's tagging something. So those are the ones that there's kind of a gray area until the investigation can be determined as to what may or may not have been the purpose of that.
And does it depend on whether or not you ever find the perpetrator?
It depends greatly on that.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's really without having some kind of resolution to those questions, they could stay suspected as a hate crime, and it may not be, but probably have to err on the side of caution on those ones,
Mhm.
just to make sure that we're capturing it and making sure that, if there gets to be a trend on anything in particular, we're at least aware of it.
Okay, thanks, Chief.
Moving to the next one.
And now we're moving on to Chief Constable's reports. Yes.
So there's been actually 2 BC AMCP meetings since our last police board meeting. Quite a bit of stuff that we've covered. So I've just kind of put it into bullet form, but if you want a further explanation, I think just stop me and I can give you a little more detail on it. But the ALPRs, which is the automated license readers, basically, we're looking at, or there is funding already been approved to supply police departments with one. And I think, Raj, is the last update that we're getting only one.
No, so it depends on which one we go with. If we go with the one model, it'll be $100,000. We'll only be able to get one. If they go with the Axon model, and it's going to be provincial wide, then there'll be $50,000. We'll have 2 options for 2, and then we'll try to get 4.
And there is a grant for those, so that's not coming out of the budget, but we're trying to get additional ones. They're an extremely useful tool, But the driving factor behind this is that the province and ICBC have gone away from issuing validation stickers, so you can't tell
Don't have anything visual.
looking without actually querying them. And it's, you know, it's difficult to query very many plates where before you could see if they didn't have the validation sticker on it, they weren't. I saw the ALPRs used quite a bit in Saskatoon when I was there, and they're just phenomenal. You know, and they can be programmed to pick up so many other things. Wanted persons, people with warrants, et cetera, that are associated with that vehicle. So it's just a great investigational tool. So we're glad to take advantage of getting a couple paid for, and we're going to keep working on trying to maybe get some additional funding to get one for, ideally it'd be nice to have one for every vehicle.
Can you just explain, like, how does it work? Like, are they installed in the front of the car and you can scan the track based on that?
Yeah, you've probably seen them. They're usually on the roof of the car. Depending on the vehicle, they put them in different spots, but sometimes they're on the light bar, but they look like those smaller security cameras.
Okay.
You see them pointed off. I've seen vehicles that have one in every corner. They'll have four. And generally, I think they could pick up the licenses while they're moving and driving, but to be most effective, a lot of times they'll park somewhere stationary and they can, I don't know what the stats are as far as how many plates they can run in a minute, but they're linked into the driver's registration through ICBC, I guess it would be here, that it queries the plates very quickly, and they'll get a flag to come up either saying that that plate is expired, so it's not registered or insured, or there could be additional information, like I mentioned, they'll come and say the RO of this vehicle has an outstanding warrant for something, or they're a prohibited driver. They're like a new driver, so if you're out at night and they're driving past, it's probably a good reason to stop and check them. See anything else you can think of on those?
No, that's what it's based on. It's based on the premise of just running the plates, but you also use that tool as in relation to homicides or major crime scene where you just run that down the street. It captures all the plates. And you have a track of all the vehicles that were in the area at the time. So it's a great investigative tool.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's very, very efficient, like it would take officers, you know, to do in that case where you're investigating something and you want to quickly capture all the vehicles that are in the area at the time. Take officers, you know, up to, and if you're using that in a couple hours to do that, whereas you could probably do 10 minutes with.
Yeah.
Yours.
So, sorry, just to clarify, without the validation sticker use here, they're less effective, but they can be programmed for all the other things like restricted drive or drivers who shouldn't be driving at all, for example, or.
No, the opposite.
Okay,
They're more effective because now we can't tell, so we need the LPRs. And they'll quickly tell us every vehicle going by that's registered or insured.
So it can be programmed, Jane, for everything. So
Right.
It'll program and a flag will come up for a drive suspended driver.
Yeah.
Or somebody that's one on a warrant. So they give you a different color screen. I don't know how yours was out there in Battleford, Chief, but I know ours is flash. It would flash up a different color. If it was like some type of a flag that shows up. Any type of vehicles that would be stolen, any criminal records or whatnot. So yeah.
and so it's 100% funded by the province,
Yes.
right? So you just don't know whether they're going with a
The province has $1 million,
more expensive or less.
but you know, they're focusing on traffic enforcement and lower mainland. And I talked to the person in charge who's disseminating them, and I said, you know, we're obviously very interested in it. And because of the preference of more people that have traffic enforcement areas or high traffic.
Right.
So he says, you guys are guaranteed to get one.
Okay.
If they give you one, they won't ask for two. Definitely ask for two. So we'll see what happens.
Shoot for the stars.
Yeah.
So the next thing was the decriminalization, which that includes methamphetamine, cocaine in both crack and powder form. There's a few other drugs on that list. That is supposed to start in February of 2023, but they've they're trying to make it as smooth as transition as possible, and Vancouver is taking the lead on some training for officers, exactly, you know, how you're supposed to implement or not implement, I guess if you want to call it that, criminal code, the laws as they formerly were about simple possession and that. So it's 2.5 grams of personal possession. And there's a bit of discretion as always for the officers. There's still lots of moving parts, but they're hoping to have the first training session just on the basics roll out in mid-November, and then likely to have a more comprehensive course that's out by time rollout is in February. So that transitions into that. One of the issues that's come up, and I've mentioned this to the city now a time or two, that we'll start being a little more proactive with it, but there is technically no authority or law prohibiting public use, because like cannabis and alcohol are legal, and there's a provincial act that sets out all those rules and consumption and this and that. Because these aren't technically legal yet, they're just decriminalized. There's no authority for police to act on if somebody's using it in the park or downtown. So we're suggesting that every municipality should look at drafting some bylaws to address those issues, which to me, it would make more sense if it was done at the provincial level, or there was a conglomerate that helped every municipality, because every single municipality province should have a bylaw to address it, so that there's not inconsistencies.
Well, and on top of it, it's going to be all new councils all across the province who probably, will take a couple of months before they can get their head around drafting bylaws anyway. I know the staff do a lot of the preliminary work, but still, they do 4 to 6 weeks of training before they even start actually doing business. So timing would be a
Bit of
problem.
tight turnaround.
The public use for cannabis and liquor, that's a provincial. Yeah, it's not up to bylaws in local municipalities. Is that correct? Yeah, okay.
The issue with this, and it's a bit of a smattering of everything, because those controlled substances, the CDSA is a federal act, so it's an exemption to a federal act being implemented in the province and then downloaded to the municipality to do the bylaw to control it. So it's, 3 levels of government have a little piece of it. So
So it'll be 5 years before they come up with anything.
yeah, and in the meantime, the police are kind of stuck in the middle of, what do we do with the situation? And without other reasons, you can't legally seize it either from somebody. They're not technically breaking the law because there is no law. So it's going to be interesting. There's a few other interesting pieces around, when people are in custody and they have drugs, what's the rules around, procedures around returning it when they leave? And is it, our property? Are we safe keeping it, or are we seizing it? And
Are they allowed to use it while they're in custody?
yeah, they know that one.
Sorry, my ignorance, but isn't it similar to drinking in a public place, or, is there not, you don't give back any booze that's apprehended if they're in a public place, though?
Yeah, but there's authorities under the provincial acts. So the liquor act in the province would give the police that authority.
Oh, I see. Okay,
For open
gotcha.
liquor.
That's
public
what you're
spot. Yeah, it's a bit of a cart before the horse a little bit, where it's been decriminalized, so they can legally have it, but there's been no authorities given to police to deal with the situations that arise from that.
Don't tell anyone that.
No,
Yeah,
I just told everyone.
Yeah, I know.
The whole town watches this, so now they all know. A good thing, and you guys may already know this, but they're developing a new training program with input from police across the province as well. And new police board members. There's 3 training sessions is what they're planning right now, and they're hoping to have the first one ready to go this fall. Number of increased costs that are being passed on to the police and municipalities. One is the e-coms, and I'm just bringing that up more as interest sake, because luckily with their own dispatch here, we're we're not really affected by e-coms, but they're still trying to manage a bunch of issues with e-coms, and the cost keeps going up. And then, of course, they're having staffing issues like everybody, so short-staffed, and retention has been a bit of an issue. So they're trying to tackle those things.
Sorry, is that the new 911?
No, it's a different, e-coms is the dispatch center. So so when you phone 911, it goes to, most of the rest of the province, in particular, the Lower Mainland goes to e-coms.
Okay.
So all the Lower Mainland communities, and then they dispatch police or fire ambulance, where we have our own dispatch here. So we're kind of removed from some of those issues. But the other cost is the JIBC, where we do all of our recruit training. There's continues to be increasing fees. They're levied against the departments, which obviously are paid by the municipalities, and the tuition costs as well, which are passed on to the recruits. So it's getting more expensive for recruits to go to training as well, which they're concerned that that's going to start becoming prohibitive for a lot of people to actually go. So we talk about taking down barriers to get people into policing, but cost is certainly going to be a significant one. I think going to cause some issues. So I can see that that's going to continue to be a debate between the municipal chiefs of police and the policing and security branch and the province.
I'm just wondering, since a couple of the things that you're mentioning are the same things that I was going to comment on from the police board meeting, the BCAPB. In relation to that one, they said that the Vancouver Police Department is actually investigating the possibility of doing their own training, because they said the current funding model is simply unsustainable and the training they feel is inadequate as well. So the BCAPB is being asked to advocate for two things. One is improvement in the training itself, but number two is to delay the start of the new costs, because the police boards haven't had an opportunity to actually plan for that in their budgets. So that's one of the advocacy points that they're going to be putting forward.
Yeah, and they have been pushing either not to implement the costs or delay them, as you said. And I don't think they're having much luck convincing the province of that at this point, but I think there's no harm in continuing to keep that pressure on.
One of the things that they did, that the BCAPB will be doing, is sending around a letter from the November meeting agenda. They're going to be sending a letter asking for all of the provincial police boards to sign on to it, to try to have the weight of the opinion of multiple boards.
Yeah.
See if it's going to do any good.
I know it's I don't know how there is, but I know there has been talk of potentially like a provincial, along with what Vancouver's talking about, but having its own, just opening a police training academy, which like DEPL, which is a standalone training academy for all the departments in the province. And I know it's multiple years down the road, but there certainly has been talk at the provincial level of, and along with the special committee around the BC Police Act, whether or not they should be looking at a different provincial police force too. But I think those are pretty big dreams to take on at this point, where we can't even get training for the municipal police forces, and you want to start having a provincial police force.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to have to be some significant measures taken to address that before we go down that road.
Is there confidence? Do you hear people expressing confidence in the Justice Institute in terms of, managing the training? Or like with the e-com thing, one of the things that the BCAPB said was that they're calling for the removal of the CEO, because it's been promised for so long. Improvements have been promised, budget keeps going up and nothing's happening, like over and over and over again. So are they trying to put that kind of pressure on the Justice Institute as well?
Not to that extent. I think it's, I wouldn't say it's not. There's some discussion around that. I think the e-coms piece is a little bit more, there's potential for harm right now there and stuff.
Yeah.
But I have a few points on this in the closed session. Maybe I'll
Okay.
just comment further on it there.
Mhm.
We'll do community policing.
One last thing, just
Okay.
there's the Accessibilities Act, which was signed, came into law this September in BC. Just quickly around that, it's basically to assist organizations and disability groups and individuals with disabilities working together to make BC more accessible and inclusive of its citizens. So there's a couple of pieces to that. Sort of the benchmark is to address inclusion, adaptability, diversity, collaboration, self-determination, and universal designs. And all the municipal police forces were identified as having to be in compliance with this act in 1 year, so September of 2023, in
Sheesh.
all municipalities. So they want you to look at it from the standpoint of actual accessibility of the building from visitors and guests and things like that. So there's certainly a lot of work to do on that.
Yeah, we're
piece.
gonna get rid of all the stairs.
Yeah, well, there's no way to get to the second floor and the building itself isn't that accessible.
How do you get in here if you're in a wheelchair? Like through the garage door?
Have to go, you can come in the door, but you'd have to go up the parking lot ramp and around the
Yeah.
cars.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's possible, but it's not ideal. And I think the library downstairs would ensure that they're accessible either. So there's probably a lot of buildings. So at first, it sounded like this was going to be a police thing, but then when I got looking into it and we were talking about it, it's municipalities. So I think it will be a citywide initiative, but the police are obviously going to be a big part of that. And then the second piece around it is the inclusion piece and employment opportunities within. So we need to look at whether or not there's other things we can do to bring down barriers for people with disabilities to be part of the department. Okay. Community policing. I'm happy to report that there's been really no community policing to speak of that I can comment on for this past period, which I'll elaborate further on when we get to the staffing and resourcing levels. And the Nelson Police Foundation, other than the gala, we're still working towards that and some of the initiatives. I guess getting down to the final countdown for that in November, and that's kind of the biggest thing on the Nelson Police Foundation piece.
Is there a targeted purpose for the fundraising this particular year?
Yeah, and I'll talk about that in the closed because it's
Okay.
not finalized for sure. So
Okay,
And when it is finalized, we can talk about it in the meeting.
yes,
Okay, great.
yeah, there'll be one more before I think we're pretty close. It's just there's one or two little pieces that haven't been finalized yet that
Mhm.
may derail it. So I don't want to
that's
say we're
fine.
committed to this.
Yeah, and we have a meeting on Wednesday, a week today, right? The next meeting.
For the diversity.
No, for the Police Foundation
Oh, okay.
is a week today.
We have a meeting from today.
Yeah.
This is more with the city and the budget stuff.
Oh, that's the bridge.
Yeah,
Okay.
because there's going to be some costs involved,
I see.
and hopefully some of the fundraising will support some of those costs, but we'll still need sort of the go-ahead from the city.
Any further questions? Okay. Move on to item 9, Deputy Chief's reports.
Restorative justice, the owner program is going to commence the week of October 17th in the local SDA schools in the city of Nelson. Kathy was able to secure an offsite location to conduct the circles, the Blue Room of the Civic Center.
Oh, good.
And update in regards to case files, to date 18 files, 6 completed, 4 are in progress, 2 rejected, and 6 have been withdrawn. That's it.
Cool.
Just a question about the Blue Room at the Civic Center. Is that cost to,
Yeah, so we've leased it for the 3 years.
okay,
I think 1 year, is it 1 year, $1 a year?
okay.
Yeah.
Good budgeting.
Excellent.
Okay,
You're welcome.
all right, we're moving on to directors' reports now. Any
I
directors?
have a report from my first BCAPB meeting on the board. Just a few points. We've already mentioned the tuition increase for training and e-com. One of the things that they brought up, which I found interesting, was that they're getting so many requests from different groups for advocacy. And many of them are people who just want to tick a box and say, you know, okay, we've presented to the BCAPB, it doesn't mean anything. And they're not really looking for any active support. They just want to, we've been there, we've seen these guys. They're having to actually now ask for requests in advance and then prioritize whether or not to spend time on them, because it's just becoming so onerous for the board members who are all volunteers, just like we are. Anyway, that was kind of interesting. Police services, we all know David Pilling. He was there and, well, maybe you don't, but from the conferences, we've met him.
Yep.
Yeah, and he was talking about the fact that they're doing quite well with appointments. The timing is much better. Of course, we waited for a very long time, for like 18 months for appointments just before you guys came on. But they're doing better now getting people. They still are trying to improve their diversity outreach, and are, like many people, are struggling with what does that mean? Where do we go? Who do we ask? How do we get in touch with, you know, groups of more diverse people and get them interested in applying for board positions? So that's an ongoing challenge. And then the final thing that we talked about was the conference in Nelson next year, probably at the end of May. I don't think they have a specific date yet, but
No, not yet.
it'll be later in the year, of course, so the travel is more reasonable. But we need to Shuttle has been helping with scheduling for initial meetings, but we need to have some board members join the committee to help plan the conference for next year. We need to talk about theme, and we had a whole bunch of ideas before, and then of course the pandemic just scotched it for 2 years in a row. And the overall feeling of the BCAPB is, let's do Nelson 1 year, or like maybe every third year or something like that, and keep it in the Lower Mainland the rest of the time. Or, you know, maybe even a little bit further spaced out, but people like coming here, but they can't see doing it every year. You know, nor do we want to do that. We don't want to do it either.
Because of the cost, you mean?
No, yeah, it's both cost and time. One of the things that they mentioned was if we go to Nelson, we're less likely to spend all our time going back to the office and working. So in fact, we end up having a more productive conference and we interact with each other more. But when they're down in the Lower Mainland, it's less time and less money for all of them to travel. And, you know, they aren't really too concerned about the fact that a bunch of us have to spend time and money. So, yeah. Anyway, who's interested?
I'll help out for sure.
Yeah,
I'm interested too.
we thought we would also invite Am because he was so enthusiastic about it when he was still on the board, so.
Thinking that I was gonna volunteer out.
Yeah. And he has the contacts, right, in the community.
Also, yeah.
I'd love to be part of it. I have yet to be part of a conference, but it'd be good learning to see the structure of it, so.
Mhm. Okay, cool.
Well, just regardless of if you can help out with the actual planning, you're definitely all involved a lot during those days.
Of course, yeah.
It's a pretty full on Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
When is it? What are the dates?
Usually it's the end of, it'll be probably the end of May,
Okay.
but it hasn't been confirmed.
Okay.
The date hasn't been picked. Yeah.
Do you mean during the day on
And this
those
is
days?
the BC Association of Police Boards?
Yes.
Okay.
Difficult for you to.
That's my volunteer.
It's
What are we
usually
talking about?
Thursday, starts around 1 o'clock, registration, and then the first part of the meeting is just strictly boards. And then Friday is all your guest speakers, your keynote speakers, and it starts 8:30, goes right till 4 or 5 o'clock. Then there's usually a dinner, and then Saturday's just the AGM, just the morning of Saturday.
And on Friday evening, there's some kind of a welcome reception, you know. So if you can't, I mean, obviously you may not be able to do Friday, obviously. Yeah. Okay.
Just to clarify, when you said Nelson every third year, or did you say outside of the Lower Mainland every third year?
Well, there's no one else outside the Lower Mainland but us.
Saanich and all that.
Well, they don't actually consider themselves outside the Lower
Oh, I
Mainland.
see.
You know, because really traveling there is not so onerous as it is, you know, for us to go all the way to the Lower Mainland. Yeah, like they'd all love to be in Oak Bay.
I'd go spend a weekend on the island for sure.
So, Shiloh, then when has the first meeting been set?
I think it's the 20th.
Yeah.
I'll double check. I know I sent it out to everybody,
Yes.
the 20th.
Mhm.
And Detective Hannah is also going to be part of it.
Okay, great.
Great.
But really, whether you can actually actively participate in the planning or not, if you have any ideas, just bring them up either at this meeting or email us or whatever. That's it for me.
I missed the email. It's okay. I'll find it.
I will send that to you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other directors' reports? Nothing to report? Okay, I've got a little report. And it's actually a thank you. But somebody was reluctant to put it down into words, but it's a thank you to NPD. And it's from my son, who was riding his bike through town and a car did not stop the stop sign and he had a very close call with a car, and there happened to be a police car on patrol right behind him as he was turning left, and the police car pulled the car over, so he felt really grateful. So thank you. Sure was, yeah.
Yeah, nice to get good news for a change.
Right? Yeah, I really wanted him to send in a little letter, but he was a bit reluctant to do that. Okay, moving on. Any correspondence and information?
Nothing today.
Nothing on the agenda.
Moving on then, any new business, late items? And up first, we have board committees.
Mhm.
So we have the police board committee's draft.
We have the
Award.
list.
Sorry, yeah.
Mhm.
So I was just gonna ask Shiloh about the board committees, like, do we renew like memberships? Is this at this meeting? Is
At this
when we,
meeting, or you can use this time to look this over, read over the descriptions, and then November.
at the November?
It's up to you, whatever you guys decide to do today. Yeah, it's your
Yeah,
choice.
because just, just to clarify what we're doing at the meeting, right? Because there's some new members, so I don't know if the new members need more time.
Well, and we need to replace the people, of course, who are gone, so.
Yeah, exactly.
But actually, we can also ask, if you're looking at these committees, whether you've been able to read all the terms of reference or not. Do you have any questions about any of the committees?
I don't have any question. I did have a chance to read the terms of reference. I mean, this is all new, right? So sometimes when you're reading stuff, when it's new, it's kind of,
Hard to absorb.
it's almost like learning a new language. So, I don't have any questions at this point about it. I think as we talk about it, maybe I'll have questions that come up, but I don't,
Mhm.
kind of from what I read, it's, you know, it all seems pretty straightforward.
Mhm.
You know, finance is the budget, recruitment and selection. Nope, that one we don't have a, terms of reference there for, but you know, the other ones they all seem pretty straightforward.
Isn't there anything for recruitment?
There is one for recruitment, but I think it's when we are hiring the chief, or like it's an ad hoc committee. And
No,
but
that's
that is
the-
the HR committee that's ongoing.
Yeah, there's the HR and then the
Yeah.
recruitment. Oh, so when we're looking for a new chief.
Then you
Yeah, yeah,
like a
okay.
committee, but
Of course.
not right,
Yeah.
it's not a standing committee of,
Yeah, that makes
but
sense.
finance,
But then why are the chief constable and the deputy chief on it?
that's on the hiring, I think it's for internal hiring. Like when they hire. I mean, I don't have it in my head, but I know there's two different committees. One is HR and one is hiring and recruitment.
Right, and that's here. So what are you saying the distinction between them is?
One is HR is an ongoing committee.
Yeah.
But the hiring one is only when you're hiring.
Oh,
chief.
okay.
A
Now,
chief.
An example was the chief, but you know, maybe then the chief has committees too, and he's having, I can't remember the details of that one. Well, as the HR committees, like HR concerns, rights and honors, like a personnel committee.
So if we're hiring
Well, but it's HR only with respect to the chief. It's not HR with
Yes.
respect to anybody else.
That's right.
That's
That's what the
Mhm.
terms of reference were. And are we gonna put the EDI committee on this list?
Do we expect board members to be part of it? Or only a liaison?
There's one, like, I mean, I'm on it now, but I don't think, I mean, we have a meeting coming up again a week today where it'll be finalized. So it doesn't get on this list right now because it's
Well,
not,
but it isn't a committee of the board, is it?
no, and it isn't. But you know, the other question I was going to have for Shiloh was the restorative justice. I don't have a role on that anymore. Because it used to be that we had we had an advisory committee.
Yeah.
And so I sat on that committee as a board member, but now it seems to be functioning fine because, you know, we didn't have a deputy position at that
But
time.
we did have a liaison before that committee was
I know.
struck.
I know, so I could be that, but what's the point? Like, you know, he's right there. I don't know, like, that's why we need to discuss, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know. I've not done anything since deputy has been here because they dissolved the committee. So I don't have a role. So I'm on a, list. I have my name there, but if somebody in the community asks me anything, I would just refer them back to the deputy because, he has the most updated information. So when you're looking at the committees, I guess we just want to, we don't want to have just committees where we all have our names and nothing happens. It has to be read over it. Something to think about. And you played the liaison role before I came on, so you have experience with that. And I think that's important. Then that's what we have that role, but in the same function.
Do you think there'd be any benefit to having a board member?
I don't think so. At this
Great.
point, it's just,
If you're happy.
yeah, I think there's an issue then, definitely, I think that we had spoken, Lena, in regards to having the advisory committee come back to fruition at some point, but I think we reassess it for the fall, and at this point, it's working well the way it is,
Yeah.
and,
You see, it has evolved. The program has evolved. It used to be somebody who was on contract with the police department, so that person didn't have a boss, or like she had her own little company and then she was contracted. So we needed to have some kind of connection and supervision and so on. And that person in that position was desperate for supervision. And we didn't have the capacity. So, but since the deputy was hired and has taken that on, he's playing that role. So it has
Well,
changed.
When I was the liaison, it wasn't a supervisory position. It was just to be able to bring information back to the board about how they
Right.
were doing. That's all.
Yeah.
So, but if you're doing that now
But-
instead,
Yeah.
that's fine.
yeah, we have constant meetings, and, I'm updated all the time with what's going on.
Well, you have a standing item, right? That so we're informed. It used to be that we didn't hear unless the coordinator came to a meeting.
Would there be any occasion where we would need a liaison that's outside of the deputy chief if something was going on, and they wanted to speak to a board member?
Well, she's an employee of the department.
Right.
should
Yes.
speak to the chief, not to us.
Yes,
It's changed.
Yes.
That's what I mean by
Right.
the status is completely changed because she's an employee of the department.
are there any, we can discuss this further in November to see who wants to be on each committee, but are there any people, anybody now who is really clear that they'd like to be on a particular committee on this list? Typically, there's no objections from your fellow objectors.
Well, some of us worked on the terms of reference and I worked on the governance one. So, if there's nobody interested, I can throw my name in there, but we can wait till the November meeting. Unless, we want to just kind of make sure that, because we want opportunities for everyone to have a part, right? So.
Is there anyone who, previous to me joining, has an interest in a committee that you haven't yet been part of?
I think Liz was on the HR committee.
Yes,
So
right,
am
the one
I-
that she's.
am I on it too?
No, she was on the finance committee.
She was also on the recruitment and selection committee,
Yeah, I
which is
did have
easy
some
to cross.
personnel stuff that she was on, yeah.
I have an interest in the recruitment one, but that's just personal. I mean, that's just something that's straight. Boards is something I'd like to learn more about, but I'm happy to put my name in the hat if anyone else is interested.
Finalized next month.
Yes.
I'm doing some, I'm actually like taking a course right now on finance for nonprofits. So I would be interested, but can we talk about it after I've taken this course? See just how interested I am.
You're replacing a chartered accountant, so.
Yeah. Well, there's two positions open there. But I would be interested. But I really do want to work through this program that I just started, this course that I'm working on right now.
You don't have to be a chartered accountant.
No, I know, but you know what, I want to feel more like, I want to finish this course I'm taking, just, see how confident I feel. Working on a multi-million-dollar budget,
Mhm.
so.
And there are opportunities to learn when you join any given committee
Committee,
by
yeah.
other directors who are already on it.
Okay.
Thank
So,
you
yeah.
for your interest in that.
Yes.
And so we'll add that to the list for the agenda for November, and so people can sort of give that some thought and think about what they'd like to sign up for in terms of committees. Great. Okay, so, sorry, have we looked at the terms of reference?
No, I just put that on there so people can review them.
Yeah,
when they're looking at the list.
They've all been approved, right? Like
Yes.
they're finalized. So
Okay,
it's just that for reference.
any outstanding concerns that weren't addressed? I mean, it's all been finalized, so is there any?
Yeah.
No, okay. Thank you. We'll move on to our action list, 14. So we have our police board action items. And on that list are the Diversity Advisory Committee with due date being ongoing, and so they are updates that we've had the update provided. Strategic plan and the ongoing conversation about starting the process for developing a new strategic plan. That's supposed to be in November. So we'll do that then. And then October, we have the committee list, which we are going to finalize in November. Okay,
I think we're good.
great. Okay, so we'll move on to the next meeting and adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Oh, second that, but the meeting is on the 9th and both Lena and I will be in Vancouver. And I will have been heavily dosed with Gravol from my flight down.
I also will not be here.